Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel for Joelle. Welcome if you're new here. In this week's video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to sew a throw blanket with a patchwork pattern on it. For me, it looks a little more checkered because of the fabric that I'm using, but you may be using completely random fabric, so just go ahead and do whatever works for you in the fabric section, but then after that you can follow this tutorial as much as you want.
I said it's fun with Joelle. Hey!
Before we get into the tutorial, I'm going to just go over a few of the skills you should have before trying to follow this tutorial. So you just need basic sewing skills in the sense of you need to know how to use a sewing machine and you need to know how to change the mode. I will show you on my machine how to change the modes as needed, but obviously not everyone has the same machine. And also you need a little bit of hand sewing techniques. The hand sewing method that you need to use for this tutorial, if you get to this part, you'll understand what I mean by if you get to this part a little later in the video. But if you get to this part, the hand sewing method that you'll need is, I don't know the name of it, is the one where you go in, then you go over, in, over, in, over, that one. You could technically also use the running stitch. I just use in this tutorial the in, over stitch, but if that's the only stitch you know, the running stitch, go ahead and use it. I personally am a pretty terrible hand sewer, so you don't need to be perfect. As long as you know how to do it in the basics and you know it's actually going to hold together, you're great for the hand sewing. So that's pretty much all the skills you need to know. Pinning, whatever you have on hand, just something to hold the fabric together. You'll also see in some clips, I believe, that I do not use pins. I don't use them actually on my own a lot because one, my pins that I have are very short. I also just find it so much faster to not pin. I would definitely recommend for you guys though, if you are beginners, please pin because it is very hard to keep in a straight line. Even me, and I've been sewing for a very long time, it is hard to keep a straight line on certain things. Now with that out of the way, that is pretty much all the skills you need to do this tutorial. Pretty basic in my opinion, and let's just get into it. Step one is cutting out your squares. So you're going to cut equal squares out of two different fabrics. I use two different fabrics. If you're doing a sort of patchwork thing with a bunch of different squares of fabrics, let's say you have a bunch of fabric squares laying around, or you have a bunch of little pieces of fabrics and you want to make just a patchwork thing, go ahead and do that. I am just using two for my example though. When I say equal, I mean equal, like the definition, but I actually do not cut out equal squares because the fabric that I'm using, both of them are plaid pattern, and the brown plaid is smaller than the green plaid. So I just cut them out with 4 different squares of color for each fabric, and I just went along with that. And I would say if you're a beginner, don't do that because it can be very frustrating to get them aligned. If you have a pattern like mine where if you're going to do 4 squares, which I would recommend for the type of pattern that this is, cutting off the edges of the longer plaid to fit the smaller one, just to make it so much easier. And you're going to be cutting out 50 of each fabric. You hear that? 50 from, I'm using my example, your brown plaid, and from your green plaid. 50 squares each. So after you do that, you're going to assemble the pieces in a 10 by 11 checkered pattern. 10 being the width, 11 being the length. You see the photo, you get it. It's just really nice to have something to visualize so you don't end up making mistakes. And I would recommend definitely taking photos. If you are doing a specific pattern, let's say you're doing patchwork, definitely take a photo of your design so you do not lose track. And after you've done that, you can move on to step 2, which is finally getting into the sewing portion. To overlock, you're going to need to change the mode on your sewing machine. How you do that is on the bottom nozzle here, you change it to the stitch that looks like triangles with a line going down, and then for the top nozzle, you change it to where it says S2. And you're going to sew down one side of your fabric square with that same stitch we just changed it to, and then once you get to the corner of one side, you are going to make sure your needle is in the fabric, and then you're going to lift your presser foot, and then you're going to turn the fabric to the side that you need to be working on, and then you're going to put your presser foot back down, and then you have just done what is called a pivot. Super simple, you just watched me do it. And you are just going to keep doing that until you get a full round around the fabric square. I am doing this because my fabric does shed a lot because of the type of fabric that it is. And also it is just good to do to, stabilize your fabric. And also it is good to give you a little guidance on the seam allowance. And I feel like, especially if you're a beginner, it should help you a good amount with figuring out how much seam allowance you need to allow so that something doesn't become super tiny or super big. You're just going to continue to overlock the entire square using pivots at every corner on every single square. So all 100 of the squares in total. Now that you have all the squares overlocked, you can arrange them on your floor, on your table, wherever you have space to see the design you want. And once you've done that, it is now time for step 3, sewing them together. Here you see me giving a very long-winded explanation about this, and I just wanted to do this voiceover to give you it in the most simplest terms as I can. For step 3, you are going to sandwich squares together. So basically you're going to make 50 pairs. So you're going to make the sides of the squares that have the pattern that you want to be visible touch. You're going to put them together, like you see me doing here with the example of my phone and this photo printer I have. And you're going to pin whatever side you need them to connect at. So however you arrange them on your floor, on your table, you know what it is, so you're going to pin them wherever they need to be connected. And then you're going to do that for each pair, and then you're going to sew where you pinned in a straight stitch, normal stitch. And then you're going to start connecting them in that same pair pattern, except now you have 2 pairs connecting instead of one square connecting to another square to make a pair. Now you have 1 pair connecting to another pair to make 2 pairs. And you're going to pin down where you want them to connect, and then you're going to do that for every other 2 pairs that are being connected, and then you're going to sew down each of those sides, and you're going to continue that until you have connected everything in rows, not columns, rows. And you're not going to sew the rows together quite yet. And once you're done with that, it should look like this. Then you're gonna sew each row together. So you're basically going to do the same sandwich technique, except with the rows, not the sets. So pattern sides of rows facing together, they look more like this. So pattern sides of rows facing together, put them like that, sew them like that. And then you're going to sew, so let's say you did 2 rows together, this is 2 rows, this is your other 2 rows, fold the 2 rows together, again, sew it on its edge like that. And then you're going to just continue that all the way down until you have a full blanket. And here's where some people can click off. Don't click off yet though, don't click off yet, please. Stay for a second. Here is where you can actually end the blanket. You could be done at this point, but if you look at the back here, it's not the cutest, but if you don't mind, go ahead and have it like that. It's your blanket. But if you do mind, you can do one of 2 things. And also, some people might want the edges to be less, sharp. If you want the edges to be less sharp, you can simply just get a strip of your fabric or any fabric, whatever you're doing. Could be patchwork, so just get any fabric. I would say probably make it, depending on how thick your fabric is, thinking about the thickness of my fabric though, I would make it probably like my size of squares on my blanket. The size of one square, so that's around an inch. I believe the squares are around an inch or maybe like 1.25 inches. I would just say do it that much and then just do it in strips on the edge and fold over the edge, and then do it on the width, fold over the edge. You can cut those off or sew those, or you might not even have an edge. If you don't have an edge, that's great. You could just sew to the edge, and then there you go. Just fold over on the lengthwise, fold over on the bottom. Just make sure it looks good. I unfortunately don't have an example for you guys because I did not do that, but that's something you could do. I'm sure there are other tutorials out there for how to put like a lining on your blanket. So just look those up if you really need help for it, but I've explained it as much as I can. So moving on from that, there are one of two ways you can back the blanket if you do want to back the blanket. You can, one, get a big piece of fabric. Again, if you're doing patchwork or something, it doesn't have to be like the exact same fabric. Whatever fabric is good for you. Just get a big piece of fabric that matches the size of the blanket and just sew it straight onto there. Sew it straight onto the back. Just put I would say fold in the edges of the fabric and pin, definitely pin, please pin the folded edge down. Pin the folded edge down while you're also attaching it to the blanket. Sorry if that's confusing. That is a little time consuming to do, to fold it in, but don't worry, you've got this. And once you've done that, you just sew it and you're done. And you could end off there, or you can also do the lining that I mentioned earlier, and then you can be done. But there's also 2 more ways you could back it. You could cut out 50 more squares for each color and literally do the exact same thing and just attach it to the back of it if you want like a completely checkered blanket. That's definitely double the time, obviously. So I did not do that. Plus I did not have enough fabric for that. But if you guys would want to do that, go ahead and do that. I think that would make it really complete looking. And the last way, which is the way that I did do, you can get pieces of your pattern. I thought it would be kind of cute to get like pieces of the pattern instead of doing like a full checkered back. I got a few pieces, I believe 4 pieces. I originally had 5, but then I was able to like squeeze it into just 4. 4 pieces of the fabric and have them on the back. So I just did that and I sewed them together, same way with the sandwich technique, just a little different because they're big pieces and stuff. And then I actually put the pattern sides together, and I sewed the back onto the blanket, and then I left a hole, an opening, a pretty big opening. It was around this big because it is thick fabric. If I were to leave like a smaller opening, even like a little smaller, it would have been very hard to pull it through. So I left a pretty large opening, probably around this big at most, maybe. It definitely wasn't like this big. It was like around this big. I should have measured it, I'm sorry. But just gauge, see, okay, my fabric's a little thick, let me make it a little bigger. I would recommend doing it a couple inches more than you think it will be needed for, just in case. Unless you're like super sure, go ahead. But keep in mind, if you're wrong about how big of a hole you need to make, you are going to have to seam rip or just rip it apart. Technically, you just rip it apart, but seam ripping is the proper way to do it, but you're gonna have to re-sew that too, because then the bond is broken with the thread and then your whole thing's gonna fall apart. So keep in mind that, please. But besides that, I left an opening and then I turned it inside out so that it was very together and a little more professional looking. And that's where the hand sewing comes in. I got a hand sewing needle and some thread, and I did the loop stitch. I'm going to call it a loop stitch. I don't actually know the actual terminology. I forget because I learned it so long ago and I haven't used the terminology in a very long time. But you're going to go in, bring your needle over, fold in the edge. That's the only part on the way I did it where I had to fold in the edge. And it wasn't terrible, especially since I have like thick fabric and it just holds for the most part. You're definitely going to want to fold in the edge before you sew it. The edges, both of the edges, just fold them inside the hole and then sew it. And then you'll be great. And that is it. Here is the finished product. Here it is. It's super cozy. I haven't actually used it yet. Because it is a gift. It's a gift. So I'm definitely gonna wash it and stuff. But super cozy and big. It is quite heavy. I would like to say also though that the fabric that the pieces of fabric that I used on the back are smaller than the front, because I wanted to make it kind of like a pocket. That would definitely be a thing where you could definitely put some stuffing in there. But if you don't have any, like me, it's still cozy. It's just a little bra. Super cute. Here's the back, a little checkered a bit. Then here is the main pattern on the front. And that's that. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and Snapchat. And let me know if there are any other tutorials you guys would want me to do. Let me know if this was a little hard to understand, or if it was easy to understand. Still helps. And again, let me know if there are any other things you would like me to show you guys how to make. Also, any crochet tutorials you guys would want me to do. And yeah. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and Snapchat, and I hope to see you guys whenever. Bye.
Fun with Joelle. Hey!
I did make this in a day, by the way. I wasn't lying when I put it in the title. Only takes a day.